Welcome back, everyone. Week 12 Fantasy Football Weather Guys here live with on-staff meteorologist Dr. Nicholas Schiraldi and meteorologist Sean Bratton. How is everyone doing on this holiday weekend?
Good. Getting ready to eat some of that turkey. Visiting some family, actually. So this is my favorite holiday, and it's a plus because we get multiple football games to watch. So I'm excited.
Yeah, we only get one extra one on Thursday, though, instead of two.
That's true. We got the Pittsburgh game got moved to Sunday. It's unfortunate because I have a lot of fantasy players playing in that game, but we'll have to wait till Sunday. Yeah, so now we just got the Cowboys and the Detroit.
Both stadium games, not a big impact. Nick, what are you doing for the holiday?
Staying local. We're going to be smoking ribs all day, so that's going to be a delicious Thanksgiving dinner for us.
Nice.
Mashed sweet potatoes, pumpkin pie, cornbread. A little bit of a southern flavor this year, but I'm looking forward to it.
Colin, what are you doing over there?
I am cooking a 2.5-pound tomahawk steak and 10 count scallops and a bottle of red wine tomorrow with myself. So, you know.
Nice.
A 2.5-pound tomahawk just for Colin. That's awesome.
Just for me.
Man.
So we're here this week. We're going to recap a little bit about last week that we saw. And again, we're going to talk about Cleveland this week. But we got 3 games that we kind of want to mention. We're going to go through the Cleveland-Jacksonville game. We are kind of seeing some caution that we may want to watch, but not really any impacts yet with the Kansas City-Tampa Bay game. Then we're going to end with Seattle-Jacksonville on Monday. So, Sean.
Seattle Eagles.
Sorry, Seattle Eagles. I wrote the wrong name. Oh, well, thanks for the clarification. Sean, do you want to talk about what we saw again with Cleveland?
Oh, man, like I said last week, this is like ground zero for weather impacts this year, it seems like, and that is Cleveland. And we saw another impactful game. We saw a defensive touchdown happen in this game. So we had the Eagles come to town against Cleveland. That was like a 17-22 point game. So it was the under. It did hit the under for that game. But QB play, again, was just not what we'd like to see from a fantasy perspective. Baker Mayfield, again, struggled. Only had about 200 yards. No TDs. No touchdowns, just really struggling to get to the ball to his receivers consistently. And what did we see? The running game again. We saw Nick Chubb with 20 carries. We saw Kareem Hunt with 13, but only for 11 yards, but he did get the touchdown. So what this is showing us, and the trends are telling us, is that Cleveland likes to ground and pound when they have weather, and they're not maybe relying on Baker as much as he only had 22 attempts. Now on the other side, Carson Wentz, he's been in this kind of teeter-totter this year with his performances. He got you through the week. He had around 235 yards, 2 touchdowns.
But 2 interceptions.
And 2 interceptions, though.
Yeah,
he has a tendency to make some mistakes in weather, it seems.
Yep.
And the big point here, and we're actually going to be talking about this more because we have another weather game that the Eagles look to be impacted by. But he went to the tight end, Dallas Goedert, with 5 catches, 77 yards and a TD. But that totaled 48 yards and a TD there. So, you know, the tight ends are vulturing a lot of these big opportunities for the Eagles during these weather impact games. Miles Sanders, not an amazing game, 16 for 66. I don't have his passing numbers here, but I think he had a few catches, but nothing spectacular. But yeah, just another game that, you know, Cleveland just really put in, you know, a damper on QBs this year so far.
Yeah, it was. I'm really interested to see that Cleveland has been impacted all 3 weeks, last 3 weeks. You know.
I know.
Miles Sanders, I pulled up his receptions. He had 3 receptions for 15 yards. Not really impactful.
Yeah. That's not winning you a week. 66 yards on the ground and then 15 yards in the air. That's just not winning you a week. That's not Miles Sanders-esque that we've seen for him in his almost 6 to 7 yards per carry average that he usually has. So, you know, he may bounce back this week facing Seattle, but he'll have another gamut here as it'll probably be pretty wet.
Okay, so Nick, you want to talk us through our forecast for the week? We're going to start with the Cleveland-Jacksonville game. I got that one right. I'm going to bring up, I have our weather table up on the screen. So we have the Cleveland-Jacksonville game, and we are seeing a caution. This one is really the one that's really popping out this week with the caution. So, Nick, why don't you walk us through what we're seeing here?
Yeah, we're showing a caution mainly because we're we're showing a precipitation falling in each 3 hours of the game, but it's not a lot of precipitation. It's only 0.03 of an inch in total right now. That could change a little bit, but we basically have two systems which are going to affect either Jacksonville or Philadelphia later in the week throughout football this week. So if you can pull up the weather maps.
The weather map. Yep, sure. Gotcha. Yep. So here.
And
yep.
Go ahead.
So here's the weather map the precipitation map that we're looking at, and I have it set at 18Z. So, Nick, you want to walk us through?
Yeah, so Cleveland is playing Jacksonville, and it's kind of an interesting event here. Effectively, what the models are showing is kind of like a warm front feature draped across northern Florida. So we have this system, low pressure system, which is going to be moving from west to east across the Gulf. And at this frame, the strongest part of the system, the strongest rain is really over Louisiana, Alabama area. And the question is whether or not there's going to be a warm front feature that extends across northern Florida. And if it does, is it positioned perfectly above Jacksonville for it to be raining most of the game? Or is it just kind of going to be this weak stratiform rain, which really just is drizzling in pockets across northern Florida? Now, both of the models, the American and the European, are hinting at this feature. They're showing different timing and different rainfall events. Overall, we'll know a lot more probably Saturday about what this thing is going to do. I'm leaning towards this being a low risk, low impact event. I don't think it's going to be a heavy rainfall, heavy thunderstorms, or anything like that over Jacksonville. I think it's going to be this really weak rain, and it's going to have to be positioned perfectly over the stadium for a long duration event for this to really impact this game. Sean, you may feel differently, but that's my call.
This is a good time to just put a little plug. Like Nick said, it could change. Saturday may be better with information. Follow us at FFWeatherguys on Twitter. We'll be tweeting about it. Sean, now go ahead with your opposing.
Yeah, no, I think Nick brings up a really good point here, and it's really the location and the timing of where this front really starts to form, and if there's adequate moisture, and if the boundary sets up in time to bring precipitation to that Jacksonville location. Now, if that rain band or that boundary does set up, I do think that rain can last throughout the game. It may not be incredibly heavy precipitation, but a precipitation that lasts throughout the game we've seen before does potentially have some effects. So, Nick, do you want to bring us through? Looks like you have a plume up here, forecast plume of precipitation for Jacksonville. What are we looking at here?
We're looking at the European model's forecast plume. So effectively, where you see these blue lines, each one of these blue lines is an individual forecast. The European model has 50 ensemble members in its prediction system, so it issues 50 forecasts twice a day. Actually, it does it 4 times a day now. So we're looking at the most recent run of all of those 50 individual forecasts and where they're showing the precipitation, how much accumulated over a 6-hour period in Jacksonville. So I've got on the y-axis there a line that denotes the 0.25 inch mark, which is 1/4 of an inch fallen over a 6-hour period. The numbers are in millimeters per 6 hours, Europeans and how they are. But there's your reference line for imperial units.
In the entire world but us.
Hey, our soda is metric.
It is. You're right. Yeah.
It's the only industry. All right. So what this black circle is right about game time. So you can see in this graph, there really aren't a lot of blue lines that are hitting that 0.25 inch mark. There's maybe 1 or 2. Most of the ensemble members are saying the heaviest rain is going to fall later on Monday, after the game time, well into the next day, when that low pressure system actually starts to strengthen over the Gulf and move its way up the East Coast. So overall, the ensemble is fairly confident that If there is any rain over Jacksonville, if we do get this warm frontal feature, it's really not going to be heavy, and the precipitation amounts are likely to be pretty tame, pretty low, less than a quarter of an inch over 6 hours, or less than a tenth of an inch over the length of a football game.
So, Sean, what are we seeing for maybe some potential player impacts? Like you said, Cleveland really likes to, ground and pound the ball. So, Nick Chubb, Kamara this week again?
Well, yeah. So, again, we don't anticipate this to be an event like Cleveland experienced last week, where we had, I think, almost a third of an inch or a quarter of an inch of rain that fell during that period of the game. Now, we could have rain that lasts throughout the game, but it's not going to be incredibly heavy. But yes, the tendency from Cleveland right now is to go toward the running game where they have a little bit more confidence. So some of the receiving options, like an Austin Hooper, like a Jarvis Landry, if we do see persistent rain, yeah, you'll see them get targets, but we just haven't seen them get the volume needed to have a real sustained impact for in your fantasy lineup, right? So I would anticipate Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb to have another big game this week going against a very poor Jacksonville defense, both passing and rushing. And so they could get some big numbers for you again this week. Now, on the other side of the ball, I don't know about you. I'm not trusting Glennon. They're not starting Minshew. They're not starting Lutton anymore. They're going with Glennon. And I just don't know what this guy's going to do in this offense. Is he going to go to DJ Chark or Keaton Cole or somebody like that? I don't know. Are they just going to be dumping it off to James Robinson? That would be my bet. I'd be going to my best offensive player right now in James Robinson, and he's been getting 20-plus opportunities just on the ground almost every game. So I anticipate them to use James Robinson. I expect him to get an increased number of opportunities. Now, what he does with those opportunities, that'll be determined. I was looking at Cleveland's rushing stats for their rushing defense, and they're ranked 8th right now, giving around 105 yards per game. So, they've been doing okay. And over the last couple games, like their last game, they gave up around just their average. So they've been giving up pretty consistently around 100, 110 yards per game. So I think James Robinson can have, maybe he's not going to win you a week, but I think he's going to give you sustained volume to have a solid, him be your solid RB2 this week.
Awesome. So we're going to move forward to our Monday night game. We'll Sean, I'll circle back with you to kind of hit on the Tampa Bay Kansas City game, but I want to go.
Sure, yeah.
I want to get to the Seahawks Eagles game, and I'm bringing up on the screen the map now for everyone, and this is right around game time, right before game time for the Philly game. So, Nick, why don't we walk through what we're seeing here on this system?
Yeah, so this is a developing system. If you go back a couple time steps, Colin. And just zoom out a little bit if you can. Yep. Yeah, go back like one or two more. Okay, that's good. Yep. So again, this is this is the last map we just showed you. We have this low pressure system sort of over Alabama, Mississippi, Florida. If we move forward a couple steps now, you'll see this system start to move north and east. And as it does, it strengthens once it rides up the Appalachians, or the Appalachians if you're from West Virginia.
Well, you got to get the term right as you're making ribs this weekend.
So this is going to be another interesting timing question for this game. The game's Monday night. But I do think that this is going to be a very impacted game in terms of rain. I think it seems very likely that the models will come into consensus with this system, so they'll all start to show a similar forecast. And I think that the rain will be there during game time. So if you pull up, we have plumes for this event too. Yep, and here, you'll notice, again, this is the European model. Each one of these blue lines is an individual forecast.
This looks a lot more concise for the rain.
Exactly. So I've got on the y-axis again on the left there, I've marked the half-inch and the 1-inch lines. Again, those are 6-hour totals, so divide by 2 to get the 3-hour forecast over the length of a game. So we have now, the game will be 0Z Tuesday morning. So it's right in the center of that circle. There's a thick, bold line on the x-axis. That's game time. We are seeing from the bulk of the ensemble members precipitation accumulating right at game time. Now you see some blue lines to the left of that, which means that some of the forecasts are having the system move a little bit faster, and you see a few to the right of it, which means that some have it going a little bit slower. This is perfectly normal when we're this far away from a forecast. We really expect to see this variation in timing. But the important part is almost all of the ensemble members are hovering around the 3/4 of an inch of precipitation over a 3-hour period. And I'm fairly confident that throughout at least half of this game, we're going to see a decent amount of rainfall. And the question becomes player footing. Again, like we saw in Cleveland, can the quarterbacks hold onto the ball, deliver accurate passes, things like that? I'm expecting that our weather table will start to show this as a caution or extreme event, perhaps, probably Thursday night or Friday morning. The National Weather Service will start to have a little bit more confidence in forecasting this event. But my call for this one is expect rain, expect a good amount of it throughout a decent part of the game, and expect the over and under to start trending lower as people start pricing in the weather for this one.
Nick, it's like we planned our conversation. I was going to say, Nick, what do you think the weather impacts are going to have on the over-under currently at 50 points?
Yeah. So I'm a little bit more bullish on this one than maybe some of the other people out there. But I think that there's a very good chance we're going to have a rain event on our hands for Seattle at Philadelphia.
At the 50, take the under. Now, Sean, not to leave you out of this conversation, I want you to run down some stats. And I'm going to bring up for the viewers our analytics on Russell Wilson in rain events. And why don't you explain what we were talking about, that he's kind of pretty steadfast in the rain.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? Because we just talked about Carson Wentz and Baker Mayfield and how they didn't really perform in their rain event. But this also really lends itself to, we have general, information and statistics that we give per position, but we also need to sometimes really look at this from a player specific perspective. And that goes for Russell Wilson. Now, Russell Wilson in the rain, and we're talking 0.1 inches, so this isn't just like it just sprinkled a little bit. This is, at least for part of the game, it was coming down. And what his stats tell us is that he actually performs statistically better during rain games. And I think that's partially because whatever he may lack in the passing game, maybe he's not completing quite as many passes, I think he trusts his legs and he's able to make it up through his running game as well. So, he only has 5 games, so let's also keep in mind that this isn't the largest sample size here. But we see during these 5 games, he's actually outperformed his average, like playing in like a dome or where there's no weather. He actually plays better when he's in the rain. Now, remember, he has a couple really good receivers too. DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, who have just been just doing crazy things out in the field this year. They've been amazing. If you have him in fantasy, that's awesome. I have no stocks of Tyler Lockett or DK Metcalf, and I'm really upset about it. But I think they do really good things against this Cleveland defense. Now, if you're looking at Cleveland's defense, I'm sorry, the Eagles defense.
I screwed you up.
And you're looking at their No. Yeah, see, now you got the Eagles and Cleveland mixed up for me. Yeah. But now if you look at the Eagles defense, you'll actually see that they give up one of the lowest TD percentages in the league and the lowest number of passing yards. But then you also have to put this in context of who have they been playing? What division are they in? They're playing Daniel Jones and the Giants. They're playing against a rotating, QB in Washington. They're playing against, the Dallas Cowboys, and who knows who's in there, just playing with injury-riddled players. So, I don't think those stats are really representative of the defense that they truly are. And now you're going against an offensive juggernaut in Seattle. Russell Wilson has proven that he can play in these conditions, even play a little bit better in those conditions. I think big things for Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf here. I have no problem there. Now, on the other side of the ball, Carson Wentz, I wouldn't be surprised if he turns the ball over a couple times in this one. But if you have some of the tight ends now, Zach Ertz is coming back. That's the news that we have. He's trending to come back.
He's trending to
so
play.
I'm going to take that. I think they're going to try to get him in that lineup. Now, I think Zach Ertz, and I think especially Goddard here, especially if Zach Ertz doesn't play, but we're thinking he does. Goddard and Ertz are really good plays this week because we saw Wentz rely on those targets in both the red zone and just to complete passes and move the ball downfield. He was going to his tight ends, and that could be very similar here. Now, Seattle's also not the best defense, pass defense. This has been a notorious thing for them this year. They've been giving up big plays. They got a little bit better. They only gave up around 265 yards last week, but I wouldn't be surprised here if you have a Jalen Reagor maybe kind of go off here, if you have big games from your tight ends. So I'm not necessarily trending away from all Philly players. And I also think Miles Sanders has an opportunity here as well. I mean, he's a locked and loaded RB1 when he's healthy. So I think, even though it's raining here, I do think the offensive weapons can still click, especially if you're talking about the tight ends in Philly and then the wide receivers for Seattle.
So
I'm sorry, Seattle. Yep.
Yeah, you were right. You were right. Also,
you got me all nervous.
I know, it's okay. It's Thanksgiving Eve. Usually the busiest night of partying and fun, but everyone will be doing Zoom parties tonight, I assume. So our last game that I want to give you a little bit of time, Sean, to talk about is the Kansas City at Tampa. And is it even worth talking about? I mean, I just wanted to give you a second before I do the rundown and say goodbye for the night.
So I think it's worth at least mentioning that it's on our radar. No pun intended.
I'm gonna bring the radar back up, and I think I brought it up to the game time, right? And it's the same storm that we were talking about with Jacksonville.
Yeah, there may be some moisture. Right now we're going to have southerly flow out ahead of this storm over the eastern Gulf. And, there could be some things that pop up for this game. But it's a 4:25 local start time for this game, so a little bit later. So things could start churning up at that point over the Tampa area. I don't think this is going to be a big event. I don't think even if it does rain, I don't think it's going to be for very long at all. Not long enough to certainly have a major impact. You're playing Tom Brady and Patrick Mahomes. You're not really changing lineups here. If it does rain and we do get a period of maybe heavy rain, I think Clyde Edwards-Helaire could get a bump. Travis Kelce maybe gets a bump here. But again, I don't think this is worth focusing on too much because I don't want to make this something it's not. I think that this is something we're monitoring because we could have some rain roll through there, but we don't anticipate this to be a big event. I'm certainly more concerned about the Jacksonville game than I am about Tampa.
Okay. So to run down again, real quick for any viewers that joined late, we're really watching two games with a possible third. It's really the Cleveland at Jacksonville, where we're still cautious, optimistic in my minds that it'll be a rain event when I say optimism because we want weather events. So we'll check back on Saturday to follow us on Twitter. And then the game that we really think is going to be impacted with rain is the Philly game. And that's on Monday night, Seattle at Philly. And then possibly, depending on how the storm develops, with Tampa, maybe Tampa and KC. But really, it's going to be Cleveland, Jacksonville, and Seattle at Philly. Is there anything else you want to say that I missed, Sean or Nick?
No, I think you summed it up perfectly for us. I think our highest risk right now is definitely the Monday night Philly-Seattle. We're confident here that will play an impact, and that, as Nick mentioned, maybe think about taking the under on that because we think the line for that may move once people start realizing weather becomes a factor. But other than that, we hope everyone has an amazing Thanksgiving and enjoys the two games, which again are dome games, so don't have to worry about weather for those. But still should be good games.
Yeah. Nick, enjoy smoking your ribs. Anything else you want to say for the viewers? To the viewers?
Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. We'll be active on social media at FFWeatherguys. Have a safe and fun Thanksgiving. Till next week.
All right. Bye.